Welcome aboard, guys. Jared from 8 points 9 seconds, and Tom from Heat Index. You guys have the series of the playoffs right now. Very interesting times for the Heat. Jared, what is Indiana doing to make the Heat's role players look so terrible?
I mean, first and foremost, they're just bad players for the most part. I mean, without Bosch on the court, it really just takes that to a two-man team. I mean, Mario Chalmers, Batty is a great player, but none of them are threatening. They all do one thing okay, either shoot or, I guess, in Haslam and Turiaf's case, dunk the ball when they're open. But it's just a struggling offense right now. There's not a lot going on, and the Pacers are trying really hard, it seems, to take them away. I mean, they're sticking on three-point shooters, and it seems just giving LeBron and Wade a little room in the pick and roll to pull up and shoot a jumper. So keep them out of the paint, keep them from passing to guys who are open, and hope they miss the mid-range shots.
Yeah, Tom, you wrote about how bad they've been today. Care to elaborate?
I'd just like to say, Jared, I could listen to you talk all day. It's a beautiful voice you got there. Secondly, Mike Miller and Udonis Haslem have been shells of themselves recently. This season, Udonis Haslem, in the postseason right now, he has the lowest PER of any big man in the playoffs. Mike Miller is shooting 33% from the floor and can barely move. He's got a really bad ankle injury, and I don't think he's really letting it on, but he can clearly not burst or move, has no first step, and he's lost all confidence. So I think right now the Heat are as thin as they've ever been. Without Chris Bosh, they just can't penetrate the paint outside of LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, and credit to Frank Vogel, he's created a defensive scheme that has basically constipated the Heat offense.
Interesting. Well, they're keeping them from doing the crap they want to do. Jared, Vogel is a young coach and clearly a very good one. Do you see him as one of the underrated talents in the coaching kind of landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can quickly become one of the most, coveted coaches, get himself a lot of money, and I mean, he has a great attitude. I was actually worried going into this season that he wasn't going to work out because he's a very happy-go-lucky seeming type of guy, and it seems like something that would work in college, but not so much in the pros. People would tune you out. It's almost the anti-Scott Skiles type of vibe he puts out there. But I mean, to his credit, he's not really had that problem at all. Everyone seems to buy in. I mean, supposedly his halftime speech the other day was like, "Have fun out there, guys," when they were getting their butts kicked all up and down the court for the first half. And I mean, he could also flame out a little bit. Lawrence Frank, I think we were talking about when he was younger. Avery Johnson was a coach that everyone loved and maybe aren't so much in the flavor of the minute anymore. But I mean, I think he's a tremendous coach. He seems to know the schemes and be able to balance that well with managing the personalities and keeping everyone on the same page.
Yeah, he's done a really good job. And shifting it to Tom, I was wondering, Spoelstra is so good out of timeouts. They do such a good job of getting great looks. Basically, like, anytime they call timeout, something smart is going to come. But is it almost a knock on him that they aren't able to get those things without a timeout? Like, what's the dynamic there, and do you turn that positive into a criticism at all?
Is that a question for me?
I can see where you're going with that.
Okay.
I guess it's a question for both of you. But, Jared, why don't you start, and then Tom,
I think what happens with
respond.
the Pacers offense...
Yeah.
Okay, I think what happens with the Pacers offense is it sort of just kind of drifts away from things. I mean, I think you've seen them wanting to obviously pound the ball into the post, and then they just get away with it. I mean, Zach wrote a good article, I think, on HoopSpeak today that was kind of talking about that, and you would, I guess, like to see him be able to grab more control and start to, get that back on track to what they should be doing within the flow of the offense. And I mean, obviously got to put some of that on the point guards too.
Sure. Tom, where do you stand?
So, my take on this is that Eric Spoelstra, before the season, looked like a genius. He told LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, listen, you guys are brilliant basketball players, high IQ basketball players. What I'm going to do is let you guys do what you do best, is improvise in the offense. And I'm going to take my hands off, and you guys can do what you want. And for the first few games of the season, this was great. They were running in transition, creating turnovers, and they were getting 110 points a game. And then all of a sudden, you know, is that a helicopter?
Yeah, that appears to be somebody on the loose in Queens.
So anyway, so then after like a couple weeks of just destroying opponents on their improvisation and athleticism, they got bogged down and defenses started catching up on it and taking away their best weapons, and then they didn't know what to do. So now Eric Spoelstra has to call these timeouts to draw these great X's and O's plays that basically vanishes when he doesn't get to do a timeout. So that was the big drawback in the beginning of the season, was what happens when the defense figures things out and the offense needs a play. Does LeBron James and Dwayne Wade just do ISO ball? So many pull-up jumpers against the Pacers in these two games.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that the Heat can do to get to the rim? It's very impressive that that the Pacers have been able to take away the three-point line and also force pull-ups. Technically, how are they doing that, Jared?
I mean, I think the way that they're covering the pick and roll, perhaps by strategy and also just because I think it's Roy Hibbert, he can't really get out and hedge very well. I mean, I think you see other dudes get out there real far and almost force the ball handler to either really loop around to get into the driving lane or just give the ball up. And Hibbert just doesn't go out that far, because if he does, it's just a head fake and they're by him. So he just kind of is sagging a little bit, and Paul George is really good at kind of slithering over a screen. Danny Granger, can get through screens when he's trying hard, but it takes him a little longer. But by the time he recovers, I mean, it's either take up a pull-up jumper or, really kind of force something and go by Hibbert and take a shot that's obviously going to be challenged by, as Barkley says, the 7'9" Roy Hibbert.